Fuzz, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be your MC tonight. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on tonight and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging as well. That's about as formal as we're going to get throughout the rest of the evening. So like I said, it's my pleasure to be the MC. I got asked last week if I was going to be the MC, which makes me think I probably wasn't the first choice. So if I absolutely butcher this, you can blame the bloke that pulled out last minute. It might have been Andy's brother or Macca, I'm not sure. So I think in terms of how I know Andy and Sandy, it would be remiss of me not to share a couple of stories of how we met to start on the evening. So I had the privilege of meeting Andy on our first Army posting. We're both Army Medical Corps. I'm a non-clinician, one of the dumber ones in the crew, not a doctor or a nurse. We both had our first posting up in Darwin together. This was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I think it was. Is that about right, mate? Yeah, 7 years ago, there you go. So for the first 6 months up there, we had to live on base together. And we lived in rooms next door to each other, which was pretty great. Now, Andy being Andy, he's always prepped for everything. He's very studious. Keep in mind he's a first-year Army doctor, so he'd spend his nights studying in his room. And he had a little bar fridge in there, which he'd always have stocked with a six-pack. We were not studious. Like I said, I'm one of the dumber members of the Medical Corps. So we'd spend our evenings down at the officers' mess, sinking some frothies, maybe between 8 and 15 on a Tuesday night. The mess would shut about 9 o'clock and we'd go up to Andy's, and we knew he had a six-pack in his room. So we'd go knock, knock, knock. Hey mate, how you going? He goes, oh boys, how you? As he does. Oh boys, how you going? Like, hey mate, you don't have a couple spare froths we could grab you? And he's like, of course, boy. Andy being the most generous man he ever is. Relentlessly generous. Of course, boys, take the six-pack, take the six-pack. And this would repeat itself night after night. But this wasn't enough for Andy. He's too generous. So maybe week number 2 of doing this, he moved into, hey boys, you can take the six-pack, but you want some corn chips and salsa? Maybe some blue cheese and crackers. Salted cashews. 2022 member tickets to the West Coast Eagles. Birthrights to my firstborn son. I enjoy the story because it kind of shows how generous Andy is. And the best thing about it is we're still drinking your frothies today, mate. I'm going to say one more story about Andy before we go. He's going to hate this story, but I quite enjoy it. I'm denying whether this is appropriate for the wedding, but I'm bugger if we're going to do it. So, not soon after, we just moved up to Darwin. Andy and I had our first bush ex. So, we're on exercise down in Whoop, South Australia somewhere. And Andy set up his first treatment team, which is in a tent. It's like a resuscitation capability, good to go. We're both very excited, and we get our first customer. The first customer, or patient if you want to call him that, is about 130 kilo, maybe 140 for the purpose of this story. Huge gunner, so artillery gunner, which is, he's been out there for about 3 weeks, so he's smelly, he's dirty. You can smell him before you can see him as he comes up to the tent. So the dude rocks up and he's like, Doc, and he's like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And he says, mate, I've got a real trouble with my bowels. My bowels are in a bad way. And he's like, all right, he did a bit of an examination. He's like, he knows what he's talking about. He did a bit of an examination and he's like, all right, mate, I'm going to have to do further examination and it's going to involve me inserting a finger where you wouldn't usually insert a finger. So the big fella, he's like, okay, reluctantly, walks into the tent and Andy, maybe a little bit too excited, follows him after. And we've got our first customer. About 5 minutes later, the 135 kg fella walks out, bright-eyed, and kind of does his best duck waddle into the distance. Andy comes out, also wide-eyed, viciously rubbing his hands and scrubbing it. And I was like, hey, Doc, what happened? How'd it go? He's like, Fuzz, it went well. I forgot to put my glove on. Being the competent platoon commander I was at the time, I immediately submitted his transfer paperwork to join the Navy. So, not soon after that first bush ex, I got to meet, Sophie moved up to Darwin, I got to meet the lovely, so where are you mate? The lovely Sophie right next to the groom. the delight of having a barbecue or dinner party over at Soph and Andy's house. Soph, after maybe third bottle of vino, really enjoys doing a duet. A Disney duet, no less. Doesn't matter if it's Lion King, Aladdin, she froths on it. She absolutely can. And when I say a duet, it's her talking. You are going to be the backup. She will dominate and she will absolutely take control of that song. So it's in that vein that I'd like to make some observations on what I've seen tonight and their relationship as a whole. Let's see how this goes. I can see what's happening. And they don't have a clue. They'll fall in love, and here's the bottom line. Our trio's down to 2. The sweet caress of twilight, there's magic in the air. And with all this romantic atmosphere, it's clear the wedding's finally here.
So can you feel that love divine? Peace the evening brings. The world for once in perfect harmony with all its living things.
That night, it can be us soon. Their carefree days with us were history, at least till after the honeymoon. Tick that box off. Musical number at a wedding. Wow. Righto, so from there, that's the end of my welcome. I'd like to invite Sophie up just to say a couple words very quickly.
Bust down in the altar.
That was so good. You pulled it off so well.